But let me ask you a question. A systematic review, first of all, has several steps outlined here in terms of framing questions, searching literature, data extraction, synthesis, and evidence interpretation. And the question is, can there be a systematic review published without any studies included? Have a look at this. A systematic review has a question, a method section that describes the literature search, data extraction, and the plans for synthesis. If you conduct all this and you find no studies, perhaps a journal will be prepared to publish your article with 0 studies if your topic has a priority. Here is a paper published in the British Medical Journal where the search found 1 potentially relevant studies using a proper methodology. And in the end, this study did not meet the quality criteria. So in the end, the review included 0 studies that could be interpreted for their value. So I guess the answer is clear. The methodology is what drives the possibility of publication, not necessarily the number of studies. At this stage, I also take the opportunity of explaining a little bit more about systematic reviews in a forest plot. You can see that a meta-analysis is published in this type of a diagram called forest plot, where you have studies described, data is extracted, and then results presented according to a scale. The effects are calculated by comparing intervention versus control. For example, in this study, the effect size is 0.2. In this case, a value of relative risk less than 1 means that the study favors control, and the confidence interval around the point estimate is what is responsible for determining what should be the sample size of the study, because the sample size is what narrows down the confidence interval. What a meta-analysis does is it takes several studies with wide confidence intervals and puts them together statistically into a single result, which has a narrower confidence interval, usually narrower than that of individual studies. What is the impact factor of what is the importance of the impact factor of a journal? Well, let's see, there is one more question. How much minimum time could be required to complete one article beside publication? One article beside publication. Well, I suppose you mean to carry out one study to be able to write a publication. Well, if you are undertaking a systematic review that includes no more than 15 to 20 studies, and you're working in a group of 3 to 6 people together, I think it will take you somewhere between 3 to 6 months to achieve what you have asked, which is undertake the work leading to writing of the manuscript and submission to a journal. Subsequently, how long it takes to get published depends on how long the journal takes to complete its process. This question, what is the importance of the impact factor of a journal? Well, the journal impact factor is measured in many ways. For example, impact factor typically is the number of citations received by the number of articles published in 2 preceding years. And this is typically used to determine whether a journal is valuable. But this is not the only measure. There are other measures. Immediacy index, 5-year impact factor, and more recently, something called alt metrics, which looks at in social media how frequently the work has been used to write comments. And this type of metric is now frequently reported alongside each article. So please don't become hung up just on journal impact factor. Look at the broad picture as the scenario concerning value of your work continues to develop various different indices of measurement. Okay, the next question is, how can someone publish a research paper who does not want to write a manuscript and does not have time to submit it to a suitable journal? Well, the answer is such an individual cannot publish. I'm afraid there is nothing more I can say about this. If you got to do research, you got to do it seriously, and to do something seriously requires you to make an effort. And if you don't want to make an effort, you obviously cannot achieve what is described here as the aim of publishing an article. Next question, what is the difference between result, conclusion, and discussion section of a research paper? I take you back to the structure of a paper that I described. Here you can see that the conclusion is first appears in the end of the abstract in no more than 1 or 2 sentences. It describes the interpretation of the answer obtained concerning the main objective of the work. I ask you to focus on what I'm going to repeat again. The conclusion describes the answer obtained to the main objective of the work undertaken. It can usually be described in no more than 1.5 lines. Results is again a description of the data analysis carried out with respect to the objective of the study. The discussion is a discussion of the findings presented in the results section. And I would advise you to write the discussion using a structured format, which includes at least these headings: principal findings, strengths and weaknesses compared to other studies on the same subject, and the meaning of the findings, and recommendations for future research. Next question. How one researcher can get data from other hospitals or universities in Pakistan or in other countries? Well, this depends on what kind of study you have designed. If you design a multi-center study, then presumably your study would involve other people invited with you as co-investigators, in which case you will simply have to ask them to provide the data they promised you at the time of planning the study. This interesting question, what is the penalty for publishing a bogus or forged research paper? Well, this is a serious question because it asks you not to undertake bogus or forged research. And I show very briefly to you the penalties that are published in the literature. For falsification, you may be banned, for example, for 2 years from resubmitting to the journal. But look, there are more serious implications. If you are employed in an organization, your contract of employment may be terminated. And if you are undertaking fraudulent research as a medic, your license to practice as a medic may be canceled. So the worst penalty for fraudulent research is cancellation of your ability to work as a medical professional. And you may be aware, or you may not be, only today, article published in the BMJ has highlighted that an individual whose allegation of fraudulent research were proven has been given a jail sentence by a court in Sweden. So I think I don't have to say more than this concerning the penalty. Can research be a profitable career for the youth, both for getting promotions and from the point of view of earnings? The bottom line is that the medical profession cannot develop without research. In this case, investment in research is taking place daily. Those medics who invest in learning about research can, of course, make a profitable career as a researcher. And I simply take you through my own life journey. I finished medical school in 1988. I worked in Kenya. And on returning to Pakistan, my first paper was published in 1990. I was still a first-year resident at the time. Subsequently, I undertook research training, worked for several years in the UK, including 15 years as a professor in UK universities, primarily in a role as a researcher. And 3 years ago, I moved to the University of Granada. I give you my example as the possibility of a profitable career with the opportunity to make something good out of your own life as a professional. Is copy editing and writing on someone's behalf the same thing? Well, not really. Here is the life cycle of a manuscript. The writing of the manuscript is the first step. And if a paper is accepted and published, the reading of the manuscript accepted before it is put into a PDF form for final release is called copy editing. So manuscript writing and copy editing are totally two separate roles. And now we have another question, which is on the chat. Do you have any suggestions regarding specific or particular topic that could be helpful for getting some idea about structure and other things that we should read? You mean read with respect to undertaking research? This is a question by Siddiqa. I don't understand your question fully. The bottom line is, on a daily basis, a practicing medic comes up with queries in their life, in their profession, to which they don't know answers. If your question is, should you be reading by directing, how should you be directing your reading? The answer is, on a daily basis, you will identify areas of ignorance in your own knowledge. And you should direct your reading to meet the gaps. In other words, the ignorance that you have identified in yourself. Here is a question: what is the difference between good and bad research? Well, you may have heard about critical appraisal. There are many tools for critical appraisal. For any type of research study, you apply the critical appraisal tool. If the study meets the tool, you can rate it through the tool as being of high or moderate quality, or a low or critically low quality. But there you have it. Using critical appraisal tool, you can judge whether published research is valuable or not valuable. So usually this type of stuff will have been taught to you in your evidence-based medicine or epidemiology courses. But if not, there are an infinite number of resources available online for you to learn about critical appraisal. Sample size is small. Does it mean the study will be rejected? My answer is no. Look, the idea is, when you carry out research, that you discover the truth. If the study is small, the possibility of discovering the truth is reduced, but it's not reduced to zero. Also, a study that does not provide precise answer because it is small does not mean that it is valueless. If your topic has priority, for example, 3 years ago, when COVID pandemic started, there were no studies on the topic. So even very small studies were readily accepted and published. It was a priority topic at the time. Of course, how should priority be decided is an important issue. And this, I think, also comes through in this next question, which is doing research on a common topic on which there are thousands of papers a bad idea? Well, if you're going to do a systematic review where thousands of papers already exist and no systematic review exists, that's a very, very good idea. If thousands of studies exist but are not relevant to your setting, then the study that you undertake in your setting has a priority in your setting. In this case, it is also a good idea. But mindlessly repeating previously proven questions is a bad idea. Now, the question is, how do you prove the value or priority of your study? Well, this is done in the introduction section of the paper you write. Here you've got to demonstrate importance of the topic, which you do by demonstrating prevalence, life quality, economic cost, etc. And then is a question, why did you undertake the research? This you demonstrate by looking at the previous literature. You might find that there is no previous literature, then your study is justified. You might find that previous studies exist and they are of poor quality, then your study is justified. And if it's a systematic review and you find previous reviews exist and they need updating, then your review is justified. So you can see that there is a scope for undertaking research in a topic which has been frequently previously researched. And with this, I finished the 20 questions, and it lead me to go to the chat where there is a new question. And it's an important question, which is, can a paper be submitted to 2 or more journals at the same time if we are concerned that one is being rejected or considered unethical? Well, there is a number of concerns raised by the way you put the question. Well, first of all, as things exist, you should only submit one paper at one time to one journal. If you want to submit to a second journal, you must officially withdraw it from the first journals and then submit to the second. And I'm concerned that you are asking me that a journal will consider your research unethical. I mean, you should never undertake research that could potentially be unethical. If you are concerned that there is an ethical issue in a project you are about to undertake, then you should seek permission, advice, comment, or approval or exemption from approval from an ethics committee. And this approval or exemption from approval, provided to you in a written form, can then be submitted to a journal to demonstrate the ethical value of the work you have undertaken. How do you go about choosing a topic? That's not an easy question to answer. I think I have highlighted in the previous set of slides concerning how you write an introduction as to how you can choose a topic. Topic choice requires research. Topic choice requires understanding the importance of the topic. It requires you to know what is the prevalence of the condition you want to study. What is the impact of the condition on life quality of the patient? What is the economic cost of the condition to the health system? And what is the priority of the patients for that condition? If you know answers to these questions, which you will know, by undertaking systematic reviews that allow you to address these questions. That can give you an idea of what is the priority of the topic. Another question in the chat is, do you think it's better to focus on quality of research or quantity of papers we publish? Well, as a medical student, you will not be able to publish a very large number of papers, right? I think the key thing for you is to focus on quality, so that on graduation from medical school, after completion of your internship, when you proceed to the next stage, which is training for your future professional career, that 1 or 2 good publications maximum will be valued by the people who are assessing your application for residency or position for training as in a PhD program, or whatever you want to do next. So I would certainly focus on quality than quantity. The question again about multiple journals is again asked, and I give clarification. Zubaid is asking the question. Zubaid, submitting to multiple journals at the same time is at present considered unethical. Yes, that is correct. What should be our approach? Question by Quariha Tahir Ansari. What should be our approach to search relevant papers for systematic review? Well, I hinted at it earlier. PubMed search is insufficient. There are more medical journals, at least twice as many more as those exist in PubMed. You need to look at other databases, Embase, Google Scholar, Web of Science, depends on your topic. If the topic is in psychology, for example, then a bibliometric database related to psychology and psychiatry will be far more relevant. Well, at this stage, can I ask the organizers if what you wanted me to cover has been covered, and if there are any remaining questions?
Thank you, sir. I think the talk is really good, and we've covered a lot of questions that everyone had. I can give another minute just to see if people have any questions left. Otherwise, we can conclude our talk. Okay, I don't think there are any more questions.
Okay. Well, look, thank you very much for inviting me, and I will be happy to return and address any specific queries that perhaps were not included in the 20 questions or in my presentation today. And I look forward to further contact from yourselves in the future.
Thank you so much. So everyone, I will just be wrapping up this talk. In conclusion, first, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Khalid Khan for taking the time out of his day to share his knowledge and expertise. A thank you to all the medical students who participated as well in this research session. Your eagerness to explore the world of research and your commitment to advancing medical knowledge is truly commendable. On behalf of the entire Research 101 team, I wish you all the best of luck in all your future research pursuits. Thank you once again for your participation.